welcome to the latest edition of This Week at the Park. Exactly 1 week ago, we announced on the show that the Redskins would be announcing their head coaching pick. The Redskins got their guy. As General Manager Bruce Allen announced Jay Gruden as the 29th head coach in franchise history. After much fanfare and an introductory press conference, things got down to business as Gruden released 3 of the holdover coaches before bringing in 3 of his own. Several more announcements expected this afternoon as I bring in our panel to discuss those guys. We have from CSNWashington.com, Tariq El-Bashir. And joining us again, NFL, CFL great, outside linebacker, defensive end, do whatever you want, Chris Wilson. How you guys doing this morning?
What's going on?
Doing great.
Excited.
All right. You know, no more mystery here, guys. Of course, they still have to fill out the rest of the staff, but a lot of those guys are in place already. And, you know, of course, the big kingpin is the head coach who is going to decide the rest of his staff, hopefully set the tone for a new direction for this franchise. What do you think of the hire?
I like the fact that they didn't go with a retread. I like the fact they're giving a young guy, relatively young at 46, you know, he's got new ideas of the way he wants to run a football team. I like the hires he's made so far. You know, I feel like he's going to bring some new energy to this team. And anyone who watched Hard Knocks knows. I mean, he has a motivational side. He's no nonsense. He's demanding. And when you were in that meeting room, you know, watching HBO, I mean, it seemed like he really got the guys' attention. I mean, they were all sitting up straight and listening to him. He was telling them that day, if you remember, you were not good enough in practice yesterday. If you want to win on Sunday, you got to bring it today in practice. And you know, I feel like there was a little bit of a lack of urgency. It started to kind of seep in the past year here in Redskins Park, and I think he'll restore some of that.
You know, you talk about a guy who was part of a coaching staff that really turned around a Bengals franchise. This was the Bungles for years and years and years. You know, and finally, you're talking about a team that made it to the playoffs 3 straight years, and that really can't be understated in the NFL today. He was part of an offensive coaching staff that made that offense better each year. What did you think of them making kind of a quick move as soon as the Bengals were out of the playoffs?
I think it was great. We knew we were going to get a new coach, so the best thing to do is make a quick move while more coaches are available. I just like the job that he did with Andy Dalton, A.J. Green. I think the Redskins have their priorities in order. Most important thing on the team is the quarterback. Get him going. We know how talented he is. Let's get him going. He's walking around with a smile, got his swagger back, so to speak, and we can build everything else from there.
Chris makes a great point. I mean, one thing about Jay Gruden is he's a former quarterback. Never played in the NFL, but he sees everything through a quarterback's eyes. So you know he's going to be RG3's #1 ally, you know, from day one. There's no way the coach and the quarterback are going to have the type of relationship they had in past years. I think they're going to be in lockstep. I think they're going to be on the same page.
Have to be.
Yeah, and I think that's going to make a big difference.
That's what you see with Drew Brees over there in New Orleans. And also he's already let everybody know that he's going to be the one calling the plays. So I like that because he's assuming the responsibility and the accountability already.
There's going to be no Monday press conference where you go, I didn't.
Exactly.
We'll have to watch the film.
No bus driver.
Watch the film. Exactly.
No bus driver.
He's got the answers right there for you after the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, not only that, obviously Robert is the focal point of any hire at this point, but you look at what he was able to do with A.J. Green, who obviously brings a lot of talent, Jermaine Gresham, who also brings a lot of talent, but he got the most out of those guys. You know, two critical positions in the NFL right now are obviously your top receiver and that playmaking tight end. You know, what sort of effect do you expect him to have on the rest of the offense, and who is the beneficiary, you know, besides Robert in all of this?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. As an NFL player, anytime it's a new staff, anytime it's a new head coach, we don't quite know what his thing is. You know, does he like effort guys? Does he like big physical guys? Does he like fast guys? We don't know. So
we got a hint though. He's a quarterback. And what do quarterbacks like to do?
They like to
sling the ball around.
They like to throw it.
So I mean, I know just in talking to people who covered the Bengals and just kind of getting a sense for the way Gruden ran the offense over there. There were times toward the end of last year where people were going, hey, why is he getting away from the running game? Why is he throwing the ball so much? We've heard that before around here. So I would say the guys who have the biggest smiles on their faces right now are Griffin, probably Pierre Garçon, anyone who knows Jordan Reed, anyone who's going to be on the other side of a pass. I'm sure Alfred Morris is going, I hope he doesn't forget about me.
Well, Alfred Morris is going to play an even bigger role because people that love to pass the ball, eventually you go up and you have to do the 4-minute drill.
Yeah,
so it's going to be time to run, and it's going to be harder on yards, and we're going to see how good this Alfred Morris really is in his 3rd season.
Yeah.
And I think that also if you're playing with a lead, that would, that's got to help Alfred Morris. He got all of his yards in the first half this year. I'd love to see what the split was, but, there were plenty of games where he had 60, 80 yards in the first half and 3 carries in the second half. He just was not getting opportunities in the second half. So one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting coming out of the press conference, and right off the bat, he said, we're going to forget about last year. Last year was last year. I wasn't here for that. I wasn't reading about it. I'm focused on this year, going into this year, and kind of setting the tone. When you hear something like that, I mean, obviously that raised a lot of eyebrows from people, but which side of the fence were you on in terms of, is it good to forget about the past? Is it good to forget about a season like 3-13 that you're not responsible for?
You know what? A lot of times what comes out of a head coach's mouth in the NFL is, how do you put it, not quite exactly 100% the truth.
Right.
But you know what? I mean, if you know what an offensive coordinator does on another, there's no way he was up on every single thing that was happening in the drama that unfolded here in Washington on a day-to-day. I'm sure he was getting text messages. I'm sure he saw what was being reported on the NFL Network and ESPN. But he was focused on his job. And I think the important thing to do when you are a new coach bringing in a new staff and you want to start a new era, you have to sever and just say, look, that was them. I wasn't here. Don't ask me about it. I mean, even if he does have a little bit of inside knowledge, just, you have to make a clear delineation between the Shanahan era and now the Jay Gruden era.
Right. His job is not to dissect and figure out why the Redskins were losing last year. His job is to dissect and figure out how to win.
Wasted energy looking back.
It's wasted energy, yeah. So he's going to come in with my favorite thing, new philosophies, new points of emphasis to get this team going in the right direction.
Now, on the other side of the ball, obviously, something that is near and dear to your heart, we talked last week, would he switch it over to the 4-3? It looks like Jim Haslett is staying in place. He is going to be the defensive coordinator. But I think we're actually going to see what Jim Haslett can do this year. Not that there were excuses being made. He certainly made none, and Mike Shanahan made none for him. But you always kind of had that feeling of who's calling the ultimate shots, who put together the staff. It seems that Jim Haslett has now brought in, it looks like, 2 linebacker coaches this year.
3-4 gurus.
Exactly. Certainly, yesterday we had the announcement of Brian Baker, and we'll get more into him later. But bringing in his guys, are we going to see a change in flavor and philosophy on the defensive side of the ball, even sticking with the 3-4?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brian Baker is a very seasoned coach, outside linebackers coach. He also deals with D linemen, has Pro Bowls, has all the credentials, very savvy at the position. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but another great linebacking coach, a great football coach who coached me, Coach Olivedati, he's going to be coming in and doing a great job. And I know how these guys think. I know how these guys dissect teams, dissect offenses, tendencies, the whole nine. So we're definitely going to see a better defense this year.
I mean, is this finally his staff to do what he wants with?
Absolutely. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, talking to people as things devolved last season, I got the sense from people who knew what was going on that Mike Shanahan would occasionally override what Jim Haslett wanted to do in game planning and also on the sidelines sometimes. And that led to bad feelings. It also led to bad plays. I think that you're going to see this year a defense that is completely molded and shaped by Haslett. And if things don't work out this year, there's going to be there's going to be nowhere for him to run. It's going to be his staff. He's going to be ultimately in charge of. He's going to be the architect of the defense. It's going to be on him. So, and I think he's going to be able to, with the increase in the salary cap, go get his own players too.
Well, we will dive deeper into the 3 new assistant coaches. Stay tuned for segment number 2 coming up next. Segment number 2 of This Week at the Park. Before we get started, hey Redskins fans, the Redskins Desk Site app turns your PC into a Redskins DVR. This PC app automatically delivers high-definition videos directly to your computer. Never miss game highlights, interviews with players, coaches, full-length TV shows such as this one, and more. Download it by going to redskins.com/desksite. Talking first about the first announcement that happened yesterday, the move that we all expected, offensive coordinator Sean McVay, promoted from tight ends coach over the last several years. You know, he's a guy who is going to be probably the youngest offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Yep.
A guy who was certainly well respected on an offensive staff that seemed to be in a bit of disarray last year. What do we know about Sean, and what do you like?
I like the fact that he's liked. That's very, very important. I know he's well respected, especially by the young guys on this team. I know Robert Griffin likes him. You know, Jordan Reed owes a lot of his success last season to what Sean was able to do. I think he's going to be protected also. He's going to be able to grow in this role without being the play caller. You know, Jay Gruden's going to take the heat. And he's going to be the architect, but Sean is going to be able to, lend his knowledge. I mean, he's 27, that's young, but he's been in the NFL for 6 years, so it's not like he's some rookie. I mean, he's been around some really good offenses and a lot of really good coaches. I really like the move, and you know what? This is just the first step for this kid. I mean, he's got a big future in this game.
Yeah, he also knows what the Redskins did do well. He understands the terminology for the different type of blocking schemes, different type of routes, so that'd be easier for Jay Gruden to, transfer what he's trying to do and incorporate it with what the Redskins already do well.
And you're talking about a guy in McVay and Forrester who kind of carry over some of the things, as you mentioned, that they did well, while probably mixing out a lot of the things that they didn't do well, mixing in a lot of Gruden's philosophy.
But also the knowledge of the personnel. One thing Jay Gruden is not, if he's able to gain the trust of these coaches really quickly, and there's a good back and forth dialogue, he's not going to go back and really make a whole lot of personnel decisions. Sean McVay will go to him and say, "This guy was good. This guy's got to go. This guy was okay. If you can find a better guy out there, let's make that move." I think that's gonna help Jay in terms of time management to get other things done around here.
You talk about a young guy who has some experience, but is not going to be fully in the limelight there. How much does age matter when you're talking about? You look around the playmakers on this team. Jordan Reed going into his second season, Alfred Morris and Robert going into their third seasons. Is he able to connect with those guys a little bit better because of the age gap there?
Yeah, I would say so. I
would definitely say so. Those guys that played, 1 year, they don't quite understand anything yet. They do what they do well. Excuse me, they do what they do well, but it hasn't really soaked in yet.
Right.
They're not quite seasoned. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think Jay's philosophies soak in a little bit better.
I mean, did you get along better with position coaches who were closer to your age as opposed to a head coach who was 62 years old or something?
That's not what mattered. What mattered was the coaches that helped me be more productive. Are the coaches that I cling to.
Good point.
Cling
there
to.
You go. There you go. Now, moving on to another one of the guys, obviously special teams last year. There was no real good way to sugarcoat it. They were not good at really anything.
You hear the helicopter sound effects here? I like it.
Bringing in a guy, Ben Kotwicka, who has a ridiculous resume. I mean, this guy, you just look at him on paper and you can understand why he dominates a job interview.
Yeah.
This is a guy who was a 3-year starter and captain at West Point, 4-0 record against Navy. And if you've watched any of those games recently, you know that Army is nowhere close to as good as Navy.
Yeah.
Captain of the winningest
just
team
throwing it out there.
in Army history, 10-2. He was an attack helicopter platoon leader from 98 to 2001 for led over 20 men. Flew more than 1,000 combat hours in Iraq. 7 years meritorious service. He got a whole bunch of medals and everything else. Then he retired to the quiet life of the NFL, where he spent 7 years with
one crazy life to another.
Right, exactly. 7 years with the New York Jets. Talked to a guy in the Jets PR yesterday. He is an Army guy. He wants you to be on time. He wants you to be precise. He wants you to be exact. And this is a guy who really led a fairly successful turnaround of the special teams in New York. You're a special teams guy. What's it like to have a guy that you can buy into right away?
I'm a buy into Coach Kotwicka right away because the military mindset. Special teams is so hard because you get one shot, it's one play. You don't get 4 downs. And it's such a big swing. Again, I keep bringing up the national championship. 3 points. You got a kickoff, return to the house. You have a missed field goal. You got a fake punt.
Right.
You lose by 3 points. They're fortunate to lose by 3 points with that much going on. So you talk about a guy with the military mindset who knows how to execute under pressure.
Right.
When things are going so fast, to know what to do when the person next to me does the wrong thing, how to make him right. And that's what made it so good in times past. I think he's going to bring that, and I think he's going to enforce that.
Let's be honest. I mean, those of us who watched all of the games last year, there were certain people on kick and punt coverage who looked like they were going about 60% as they jogged down the field. You know who's not going to stand for that? An Apache helicopter pilot. He is not. He is going to go, hey, you, come here. You're inactive next week. I'm telling you right now, you're inactive next week if you ever do that again. And I think that the unit lacked discipline last year. It lacked urgency. It lacked fire. This guy, I mean, from the sounds of it, is going to bring all of those things.
And I also think he's going to find some diamonds in the rough, like myself, some guys who.
Did you call yourself a diamond in the rough?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Just want to make sure.
You got to sift through the rough to find a good diamond.
Calling himself.
I mean, come on.
I love it, man.
I'm a Division II guy. Just call it what it is.
Oh, that's a good point.
But you got guys that are ready to be taught football that can go. And you got guys like Perry Riley starting at linebacker, playing all the special teams. You got to find guys to just save yourself. Something's going to give. You can only get however much money you got in your account.
That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, by the way. I didn't do a scientific analysis of other teams' rosters, but how many starting inside linebackers
this is the scientific
play
analysis right here. If you go to the bank
and
you got $100 in the bank, can you take more than $100 out of the ATM?
You cannot.
You cannot. You can only get $100 out.
Right.
So you can get it on special teams. You can get it in starting
That's
defense.
a great point.
And Perry Riley's a great player, but you just got to find ways to.
He needs to play inside linebacker.
I mean, even when you watch some of the great pass rushers go in, they come out for a series or two because they just going so hard. Football is exhausting.
Yeah.
So.
When you talk about some of the leadership that they had last year, I mean, they had Reed Dowdy, they had Niles Paul, effort guys.
They didn't have Lorenzo Alexander.
They did not have Lorenzo Alexander.
It's
they
hard.
didn't have
It's hard when you change the entire scheme.
Right.
When you change the entire scheme and you're taking the guy that I'm going to bring this up. What happened to Hightower? Why didn't we just keep the schemes the same and try to kind of what Coach Gruden, I think, is going to do with Sean McVay.
Yeah.
Let's do it as much same. Let's incorporate my philosophy the way you guys do it. Because the special teams was great, outstanding.
I'll tell you this, midway through the season, we talked to Niles Paul, and I know he drew a little criticism for this, but if you read between the lines of what he was saying, actually he gave 2 really strong interviews last year. Midway through the season, he basically said the guys are not buying in to what Keith Burns is selling. And then towards the end of the season, he said, you know what, I'm not going to name names, but there's guys out there who think they're too good to play on special teams. He goes, this is what I live for. This is how I stay in the NFL.
I can't buy that after the previous year. We're 1 and 2 in every category.
But they changed. There were a number of guys on kick coverage who were also thought they were starters in the NFL, and they're probably wondering, why am I out here?
I think that's just what happens when you lose and you don't have anything much to play for, and you read into it wrong. But I'm not buying that because when you got an organization that's known for year in and year out and year in and year out.
It was scheme, not effort is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And personnel, like you said, we lost some players. Hello.
Yeah.
All right, we still got Brian Baker to talk about coming up in segment number 3, plus a look at the playoffs, and we got some bold predictions from these guys on what they expect to see. Stay tuned.
And Dave Gruden is available.
segment number 3 this week at the Park, and we're talking about the linebackers coaches, both of them this year. We brought in 2 different guys, Brian Baker and KO, a guy that you have experience with. Right. Talking about Baker first, he's a guy who the names that he has coached jump off the page at you. I mean, he's been everywhere at this point. He's a local guy. He's from Baltimore, went to Maryland, but he coached guys like Kevin Williams, Julius Peppers, Jay Ratliff, DeMarcus Ware, Anthony Spencer, all those guys.
A lot of Cowboys.
A lot of Cowboys, but the Cowboys that did exceptionally well,
Yes.
and especially against the Redskins. He's obviously a guy who has a lot of experience. Came over from the Cleveland Browns last season after being in Dallas for a long time. Clearly excited to be here, clearly a 3-4 guy.
What I like about him, never played for him, but his resume of guys he's coached for, they're all different guys. Mm-hmm. So I get the feeling that he's going to utilize what guys do well to their advantage and put guys in position to make great plays.
Yeah.
You talk about a guy like Brian Arakpo.
Brian Arakpo, who is different from a Brian Kerrigan, but both can be very productive.
Right.
Find a way to get Rob Jackson in the mix. Find a way to utilize, the best personnel that you have.
I like the fact that he's a 3-4 guru. I mean, this is what he schemes. This is what he knows. I have always had the feeling that the Redskins shift from a 4-3 to a 3-4, even though it's been a number of years, was kind of half-hearted.
And the linemen.
Exactly.
He's coached linemen.
He does.
Right.
Yes,
in
exactly.
the Pro Bowl years, which I think we have great linemen as far as personnel. A lot of former players. I remember when Kerry Campbell went to the Texans, he was like, the Redskins personnel-wise is way better than us. But it's the scheme of things. So I think you're going to see a lineman that's going to stand out this year that didn't get a lot of praise last year.
And there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, I want to say the Skins were, 21st in sacks last year with 36, somewhere in that range. And then the number 1 team had 60. I mean, that's a big gap right there.
It's a huge gap. Well, it's come from not having the lead and things like that. Yeah. But I'm excited about if he's what I think he is, if he's like Coach Oliver Dowdy, who was a coach that can teach you how to do things as opposed to tell you what to do, and if you can't do it, we'll find somebody else. A guy that can teach you how to do things and say, you need to do this and put you in a position to be successful.
How to do it. Yeah.
Right. We're going to be very successful.
Now, Oliver Dowdy is a guy that the Redskins have not announced that he has signed yet. It is not official, but that is what the reports have said. He's a guy who was with the Redskins for 11 seasons from 2000 to 2010.
A Redskin guy.
Redskins guy, a guy that helped usher you into the league.
Absolutely. Taught me a lot. I think he went to Georgia. He might have been a little, he might have got rubbed the wrong way a little bit when Coach Spanos came, God bless him, down at UCLA. But, he's back, and I'm excited about him because not only did he teach me how to play, and he can teach people how to play football, but he's a Redskin guy, and that's what the Redskins are looking for. I think people got a little bitter when we started losing all of the Redskin guys. And, it's a new regime. Yeah. So this is the new Jay Gruden, Redskin, and I'm just happy he can be a part of that.
Another son of a coach. I love it.
There you go. Now, looking at the playoffs, we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week because obviously the big news coming out, but you have 2 Titanic matchups coming up this weekend. I mean, these are, if you were to pick teams, excluding the Redskins, whatever expectations you had for them, these are the best 4 teams in both conferences. These are games that you could have picked in April. Yeah. This is on the AFC side of things, you have 2 kind of traditional guys that are 2 surefire Hall of Famers at quarterback, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. What do you like about that matchup? And, what does the setting have to do with it as opposed to being in New England, having it in Denver?
Well, I'll tell you this. You were saying a minute ago off camera, this is going to be Peyton's redemption. I disagree, man. Tom Brady has done more with less. I mean, when you look at the Patriots from afar, I mean, Tom Brady has gotten this team this far on his own. Who are these other people? I mean, they're a bunch of Edelman. I mean, they're a bunch of other dudes. I mean, they're okay.
I like this matchup with 2 old savvy veterans who can come up with new tricks still. Who has any new tricks up their sleeve? That's what I'm excited to see. But I'm just sticking to my redemption theory because it's got me this far. So I have to go with the Broncos redemption. Peyton Manning doesn't think he choked. That obviously wasn't the reason they lost. Yeah. But I'm going with Peyton Manning's redemption and San Francisco losing last year. I'm going redemption.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you this. Whenever the Broncos are on the field on offense, I'm putting it on mute. I can't take any more Omaha. Seriously.
No more
That was
Omaha.
crazy. That was crazy.
They call Omaha. I've seen Peyton Manning call Omaha and it mean one thing, go to the sideline and change the meaning of Omaha and call it and it means something else.
That's what Tony Dungy was saying the other day. Was he would go on the sideline and then say, "All right, guys, on this series, Omaha means absolutely nothing."
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the next one, it actually means,
I used to love him and Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis trying to figure out what everything means, and Peyton used to start sending them on these, following the false breadcrumbs that lead to nowhere. But
just go back to hurry. I'll take that over Omaha any day.
Now you talk about a guy like LeGarrette Blount who comes out in his first playoff game, 4 touchdowns. He had more touchdowns in those games than Barry Sanders and several other Hall of Famers had in their entire playoff career.
That's good company.
That's great company. So you're talking about a matchup that everyone's talking about, Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. This might end up being Noshawn Moreno versus LeGarrette Blount. That's playoff football right there.
Well, I'll tell you, I like LeGarrette Blount versus the Broncos' depleted defense. I mean, they are banged up. The front seven banged up. I mean, I think Blount can definitely exploit some advantages there. I like Noshawn Moreno.
I like Noshawn too.
But I'll tell you, just the Tom Brady effect, man. What he's been able to do, and if you look at the way this team has evolved, how it's morphed over the course of the season. I mean, at the start of the season, it was all about Brady putting up 300 yards, 3-4 touchdowns. Now they're a running team. They're a power running. I mean, like they literally. I mean, you got to give Belichick a lot of credit here. I mean, he literally took a team that was, played one way, and now they play a whole nother way because he realized, he looked at his personnel probably midway through the season.
That's what this game is going to come down to. Who can adjust the last? Who makes the last adjustment?
I still like the other matchup better.
Okay, so let's talk about the other matchup. You got, Colin Kaepernick. You always, every year, there seems to be that team that just kind of cruises through the playoffs, that you're not necessarily counting them out, but the 49ers are just rolled through right now, winning 2 tough road games at this point. Kind of have to like them, especially against a familiar opponent. But on the other side of the ball, you got the Legion of Boom, which, may be depleted right now, but you can't bet against the Seahawks at home. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the 12th man there is legit. I mean, it's the loudest place on earth.
They cheat.
Do you think they pump in extra noise?
Nobody comes in all on one accord.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's my theory.
All right. I've heard that before.
Nobody just starts cheering on one accord without a 1, 2, 3. Without
Those
a boom,
acoustics
boom,
are
clap.
ridiculous, though.
It's a vertical building,
Right. And that ceiling just pipes it all back down.
I could be wrong.
False accusations. I don't know. I've heard it too. But I'll tell you this. The playoffs are about momentum. They're about who's playing the best at that moment. You look at Colin Kaepernick. You look at Russell Wilson. Which one's playing better? I mean, there's no question. Kaepernick is the better player right now. I'm not talking about 5, 6 years. I'm talking about right now. He's playing lights out. Russell Wilson's game has declined. I don't want to say significantly, but enough over the past 4 or 5 weeks. And
they need a new trick up their sleeve.
They're going to need a new trick up their sleeve. And if you just look at the overall lineup, the 49ers have more players. They got more players. And I think the 49ers are not going to roll, but they're going to win by a field goal.
I got the 49ers too.
I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one. And it goes against the conventional wisdom there of both momentum and playmakers. You got to love that they have Crabtree. Anquan Bolden is a monster, especially in the playoffs. That veteran leadership.
In the playoffs.
But I'm going to take Marshawn Lynch at home. That guy is a playoff running back. Yes. Who cares what he does in the regular season? Right. He's gonna rush for 1,200 to 1,400 yards every season. He's kind of one of those automatic guys. But in the playoffs,
last week was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and you're probably talking about a 49ers defensive front that is more physical up front.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to take the Seahawks at home. The nastier the weather, the nastier that defense, the nastier the Seahawks are going to be. And I just like them and the Patriots going into New York for the Super Bowl.
Did I read something about a Seattle burger joint selling like burger, fries, and like Skittles or something?
Yeah, it's all about Skittles. He scores a touchdown, they're throwing Skittles at him.
That's great.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, you guys are 49ers, Broncos?
Redemption.
Yeah.
Yep. 49ers, Broncos. I'm going to take the exact opposite, Seahawks, Patriots.
See how it turns out.
We will see how it turns out. Remember to stay tuned this afternoon on Redskins Nation. They will have Sean McVay, his first interview as offensive coordinator. Thank you for tuning in this week. Join us next week for This Week at the Park. For these guys, I'm Brian Tinsman. Thank you.